Ladies and gents, welcome to CG Reaction, and this is Unbiased History Byzantium 1, the Eastern Empire by the channel Doverhety. So Doverhety finally released this video today after a long wait. I was like, when he's going to upload, Byzantium video, because Unbiased History is always awesome. I reacted to another Byzantium video from another channel that has same style as Doverhety, but it wasn't like Doverhety. I mean, Doverhety, let's just say, is truly unbiased. So I'd love to see which type of unbiased he has here about the two, religious faction. Who does he see as, the evil spawn? Who does he see the evil in between those two chariot racing team? So this is going to be awesome to see how much he glorifies, Justinian in this video. Or if he covers Justinian. I think he's gonna cover Justinian since it's 20-minute video. So I'm pretty sure he's gonna cover him. But let's see anyway. Alright, if you like my reaction, don't forget to like and subscribe. Check out my other reaction. There's a link in the description for all of my other reactions that I did. I created a playlist for the Unbiased History Rome's video, 19 video series that I reacted to. So Rome fell, but the Eastern Empire still exists. So let's watch it.
The year of our Lord, 476 AD, the year civilization fell. After a millennium gracing the world with order and prosperity, through treachery and evil, barbarians were beyond the gates and ushered in their long-sought Dark Age. Such was the fate of the West, its citizens doomed.
Man, seriously, this Doverhety is so good. In the last Roman part, he was hyping up Attila so much. I didn't know any history about Attila and who the Huns were and things like that. And he was hyping them so much. I'm like, yeah, there you go. The Huns are going to take down the Roman Empire. But nope, that wasn't the case. That was really surprising. I love this channel just for that.
To despicable acts of cruelty, posed ignorance, and the tyranny of their new barbarian overlords. But while Rome may have fallen, the Eastern Roman Empire, Constantine's legacy yet stood, the defenders of Christianity, and the last bastion of Greco-Roman civilization. Even though it was ruled by Zeno, a civilized Isaurian, those being the barbarians that still lurked in the Anatolian mountains. If you recall, it was to Zeno the Aesir sent the proclamation of the fall of the West, and given the absolute state it was in, no wonder. But that didn't cover the piles and piles of crap that filled Zeno's reign before and after. Remember that traitor that ruined Leo's invasion of Africa? I won't even bother with the time that he revolted and lost thanks to the turncoat Isaurian general, Illus. I will bother though with the fact that he was a Monophysite. And what's a Monophysite? Decades back, while Aetius was busy saving the world from the Scourge of God, Attila, the other Scourge of God, Satan, was as always working towards destroying the church and ushering in hell on earth. His current plan to divide the church and thus the empire was by leading fools into believing a neo-heresy. That is, remember the irrefutable truth that Christ has two equal natures, human and divine? Well, now there were satanically inspired idiots saying it was just one nature, a fused divine-human nature thingy, thus called the Monophysites, or idiots, pick one.
There you go, his unbiased views on monophysites. Oh, I'm so gonna love this one.
All this heretical garbage was of course refuted in the Council of Chalcedon, condemning monophysitism as the heresy it was. But that didn't stop many fools in Egypt, Syria and Armenia.
I don't understand, why does it matter how people views them? Is it just one nature? Is it two nature? Why does it matter? Small, stupid small things cause so much issues, ridiculous.
From falling for the satanic plot. And thus a schism was born. Zeno would desperately come up with an act of union trying to compromise with the heretics, but it didn't go far, mostly because among all the treachery, revolts and earthquakes of his reign, even one by Anthemius' son, which failed, thanks to Illus, the empire remained divided in more ways than one. But you know what, forget about the Monophysites for a second, because the Arians were still around, those being the hordes of barbarians Arius' followers preached to, who, attracted to satanic heresy, converted en masse. Out of all of these heretic barbarians, Zeno had to deal with two Ostrogoths, a treacherous mercenary, Theodoric, and the Ostrogothic king, Theodoric. After failing to trick Theodoric into fighting Theodoric, Theodoric eventually marched on Constantinople, looked at the walls, ransacked his way away, then he fell from his horse, into a spear, and died. With Theodoric's death, Theodoric's men joined Theodoric's horde, who would henceforth be known as Theodoric the Great. All this
Oh
while
my
Verina,
God.
Ariadne's mother, the wife of Zeno, had revolted and been arrested by Iulus, incurring her wrath.
By that point, Theodoric was just basically a title that people were just adopting.
After surviving an assassin from Ariadne, Iulus retired to the east, was named Magister Militum, and then he revolted, don't ask me why. And who did Zeno send to fight him? Theodoric, who then crushed him. And why did Theodoric agree to this? So he could then revolt next to the capital and attack Constantinople, and fail. As was barbarian tradition, after failing to take Constantinople, the barbarians took the bribes to piss off and became the West's problem, Odoacer's problem. Theodoric did just that, ransacking his way into Odoacer's Italy, who, lacking the powers he got from his long-gone master, Odoacer convinced him to join forces together in a barbarian alliance to tyrannize Italy. Then Theodoric killed him, and all of his minions. Truly, a dark age. Thus was born the Ostrogothic Kingdom of Italy, and before I vomit, let's focus on the Vatican, where the illustrious Pope resided. Relevant to us is that when he heard of Zeno's act of union, he refused to adhere to this compromise with heretics. In fact, he excommunicated Christians that went along with it, and started a schism with the East over it, to Satan's fury and delight. Zeno wasn't just hated by true Christians though, but by his
There you go. I guess this is the time where Pope's power and Emperor's power was colliding. I guess for the first time. He wanted to I guess combine the two things, and he's like, no, this is heretic. So I guess Byzantium Empire is going to be mostly run on religious matters, I guess.
wife, and most people, for being Saurian, remember? In fact, once an illness rendered him weak, the people just carried him off one day and buried him alive. For 3 days he screamed for mercy before running out of air. Such is the fate of those who
What the hell? What Easter egg? Look at the left stone, behind the left stone. What, he means this? What is that?
compromise with heretics. In what would become the standard, the next emperor would be chosen by those in power, acclaimed by the plebs.
And damn, so she killed him because of her religious views, or just, because why the hell no, screw him. Obviously, Doherty is showing that she didn't care for him, like she wanted some, I guess, a Chad guy. But in reality, did she kill him because of, he was a heretic apparently?
In the Hippodrome and confirmed by the Patriarch of Constantinople. This time falling to the Empress to choose, the plebs began screaming, "Give us an Orthodox emperor! Give us a Roman emperor!" Agreeing to this sentiment, Ariadne then began searching, trying to find a man who would make a good emperor, not just a husband, and after much contemplation, she had found him, the finance minister, Anastasius. Tall, handsome, smart, rich and popular, behind this 60-year-old Illyrian lies an important tale. For back when he was about to be born in Illyria, the devil sought to corrupt this promising prodigy to his side. But alas, Anastasius' mother overcame the curse set on him. For the most part. Because of the leftover satanic influence, he was cursed with one pitch-black eye, and much worse, a predisposition for heresy. This literally dark side of him well known, the Patriarch made him vow to not betray the Council of Chalcedon, which he agreed to, and so was crowned as the Emperor. Which meant that Zeno's brother, Longinus, would not be Emperor. And we care about him because he funded the chariot racing teams in the Hippodrome, the Blues and the Greens. For hundreds of years now, the plebs were
there you go, this is stupid, the teams.
Appeased by chariot races and such games, and by then only 2 teams remained, the Honorable Blues, representing the imperial system and orthodoxy, and the despicable Greens, standing for the degenerate plebeian masses and heresies like Monophysitism. Goes without saying, the Greens constantly rioted and engaged in violence.
This is stupid. I've said it in the that other video I reacted to, and I'm gonna say it in here again. The team sports becoming more political, this is stupid. I mean, imagine that happening to NFL right now. That's just too much. People taking sides like this represent this represent that. Let's make it more political than just races. I mean, first of all, sport is made to see who's better between the two. If you made that political, you're just saying that whoever wins is better politically too, and that causes friction. So it was inevitable that this kind of thing was happening.
Romans, even more so with their patrons scorned. Who, by the way, had returned to the Sarian Mountains, revolted, got crushed by Anastasius' legions, stirred trouble for years, and then was killed. In fact, Anastasius sent the new Imperial Guard, the Excubitors, to fight. The Palatini were just parade troops by then, and among these Excubitor guards was the new commander he promoted, Justin. Yet another Roman Illyrian of humble origins, Justin got tired of barbarians constantly invading his property, so he moved to Constantinople, joining the Imperial Guard as it was forming. Quickly becoming an officer, he had his family move to the capital as well, including his sister and recently born nephew, Flavius Petrus Sabatius, and his sister, vowing to give him the best Roman education money can buy. And with power on his hands, Anastasius dedicated his life to the most important thing on existence, the economy. Channeling his inner Domitian, Anastasius did everything to spend less and gain more. For the first time since
Spend less. He was basically a cheapskate, wasn't he? I mean, I don't know if that was the case or the last video led me to believe that. But, so like I said in the last video, you have to spend some money to grow your economy. Now, if you're a cheapskate because you're not spending, you're just basically not wasting money on stupid things like throwing parties and things like that, then you're not a cheapskate. But if you're not throwing money to grow your economy and just hoarding it, that's just bad.
Diocletian, plebs were made to pay taxes in cash, not kind, having revived the old copper currency that had been destroyed by debasement in the 3rd century. He constantly lowered and abolished taxes, cracked down on corruption, and eliminated inefficient middlemen, causing a huge increase in revenue, piling up every single penny he could in the treasury. This economic boom went right along with the Christianization of the filthy, still pagan plebs. Now taught good Christian morals, including that constant breeding is a virtue and that infanticide is a sin, the population also boomed. With so much damn money pouring in, Anastasius made an exception and increased the soldiers' pay, attracting more Romans into enlisting, thus further diminishing the preference and need of barbarian mercenaries in the army. Every single day
That's one of the best thing he ever did. Just stabilizing his empire. It's like, screw these barbarians, man. We're gonna employ our own people. I can pay now since he increased the money. So if you can grow your economy, if you have money, you can do a lot of things basically. I mean, employing barbarians, that feels like the empire is not stable yet. Empire is not strong enough. If you have your stable army of your own, and it's powerful army, then you're a proper empire.
He refused to waste money on entertainment garbage, especially plebeian entertainment garbage, greatly infuriating the chariot-loving plebs. They would revolt left and right. It came to the point that one day, after the blues gathered after yet another great victory, the Greens surrounded them in mass and slaughtered countless
that was about to happen.
among them one of Anastasius' bastard sons. Furious at the news, Anastasius proclaimed a series of bans to punish the plebs, like outlawing the use of wild animals for spectacle, and banning pornographic dancing in the brothels of the empire. One day, he got so angry at the constant rioting, he said he would resign right then and there if they could immediately appoint a better emperor. The rioting then stopped, and the plebs dispersed.
No way, really that happened? It's like, you go ahead, I'm gonna resign now, appoint a better emperor. They're like, really that did happen? Oh my god. That's heavy, man. It's first of all, it's ballsy of him to say I'm gonna resign. What if they just said, alright, this guy's gonna be emperor. I'm pretty sure he wasn't just going to resign. It's like, okay, show me how you're better than me. But then there was balls in. They are like, okay, we don't have anyone.
Watching from a distance was the Sassanid emperor, Kavad. Seeking only to start hostilities, Kavad demanded Anastasius to pay him to guard against the Huns. Knowing he would refuse, which he did, so Kavad invaded the empire. In response, Anastasius launched the biggest eastern army since the apostates.
The other video showed us that how, he wasn't adept apparently. So basically he invaded this, Byzantine empire just to, basically gain money and pay over his debt.
Commanding it were generals like Justin and others like Hypatius and Vitalian. Just your average Sassanid war really. The Persians took some border cities, the Romans arrived, some back and forth, a plebeian general messed up, the emperor sent some reinforcements, the Sassanids overextended, got pushed back, and peace was restored, however momentary. Anastasius then used his money to build a huge fortress in Dara, which the Sassanids never ever stopped bitching about. And in the west, the redeployment of legions allowed, get this, the Slavs and the Bulgars to invade the empire. Now, the Bulgars did kill the Magister Peditum, but like the Slavs soon left, they didn't see a reason to stay there. The aggression of these new barbarians led Anastasius to build the Anastasian Wall, a structure you didn't hear about because it didn't last long. Indeed, increasingly Anastasius failed to keep his devilish curse at bay, and more fell to Satan's influence, culminating in Anastasius giving into heresy and replacing the Patriarch of Constantinople with a Monophysite. Seeing his beloved emperor partially fall to satanic heresy, Vitalian revolted to restore orthodoxy to power. He did beat an imperial army, but was later beat by Anastasius' forces, sending him north.
There you go. See, I saw the other guy's video and I'm like, this is good. Yeah, this could improve, but it's not like Doherty's video because Doherty's video is properly unbiased. I mean, look at how unbiased he is here. I mean, clearly between those two religious factions, as we saw in the past, other guy's video, they were fighting each other, so basically this guy just saw, the other guy is like, it's you're the issue here, you started everything, basically, and, supported the, other people, but that's gonna cause a massive uproar, I guess, because most people are Orthodox.
And Anastasius had enough self-control to not hunt him down. Gradually returning to normal and curious over who would succeed him, Anastasius hid a "you shall succeed me" letter under a chair and summoned his nephews, letting God decide through random chance. Then none of them sat on it. The hint taken, he just prayed and prayed for an answer, concluding the first person to pass his door would be the next emperor. In came Justin. And that was that. Assured the empire would be on good hands, the 87-year-old Anastasius finally let himself die.
I don't understand this. How were their life expectancy was that long around that time? In 87? I mean, 100, 150, 200 years ago, people did not have anywhere near good enough life expectancy. And around this time, people were dying at 87? Damn. Talking about good genes.
In total, Anastasius had left 320,000 pounds of gold in the treasury, and now the question was who would be the one to enjoy it. I mean, we know, but they didn't. As always, the devil tried to ruin everything by having some Monophysites try to bribe and shield their way into power. The most important person to bribe, though, was the commander of the Imperial Guard, of course, and when Justin caught on to what was happening, he used the money he was bribed with to counter-bribe the bribers, thus nullifying their bribes. When they all gathered to decide the emperor, the Monophysite bribers were ignored, and Justin chosen in their place. Justin was thus proclaimed the new Roman emperor, cheered for what he was, an ultra-faithful Orthodox Christian, and as such he had Vitalian recalled and pardoned, and what's more, started a vicious persecution against heretics. Arianism was finally banned in the empire and all Monophysites in government were kicked out, banned from joining the army, humiliated socially and financially wherever they dared show their face, including the wannabe emperors. The news of persecutions and slaughter of heretics in the east greatly cheered the Pope, and so, after decades, he agreed with Justin to end the schism with the east. Whereas in the west, barbarians like the Franks had taken over Gaul, and Theodoric inherited Visigothic Spain, with the Vandals still occupying North Africa, with their new king, Hilderic. Surely enough, after the Vandals had sacked Rome, the remaining Theodosian family was brought over. Genseric would outlive the Western Empire for a little, and after Eudoxia was thoroughly raped by his son, he produced Hilderic, the half-Roman, half-Vandal. As Stilicho, he was not. But he was still half Roman, being somewhat able to see the light, welcoming true Christian missionaries into Africa, something his heretic barbarian kinsman detested. As for Theodoric, in a scheme to subvert the East before he died off screen, he sent his son-in-law to be adopted as a son by Justin. But that didn't happen. Instead, Justin adopted him as a barbarian, aka not an heir. For Justin already had an heir, his now greatly educated nephew, who he had adopted as his son, giving him the name Justinian. A genius given the means to study it all, he became an expert on 3 fields of Roman excellence.
Justinian. I know about Justinian for only one reason. First of all, I remember, reading about a long time ago that he burned down the, entire Constantinople and rebuilt it again. I mean, first of all, that's badass because amount of money you would need to rebuild everything. And even better things I remember him from is that he wrote a lot of laws that even today most democracies are, following. Most democratic countries have laws that were inventions of Justinian. So he was a really key, important figure of the past.
Studying law, he understood what separated civilized man from savage barbarians. Getting acquainted with high-level theology, he adhered to Christian principles and never gave in to heresy. And by reading history, he got really happy and inspired, and eventually depressed and outraged. Called a man who never slept, he spent all days and nights perfecting his knowledge about everything, except military affairs. That would be delegated. A descendant of Roman settlers in Moesia, he had grown up hearing of the fall of the West, of the sacrifices of Aetius, Stilicho, and Majorian, of how a 1,000-year-old legacy had been destroyed by barbarous monsters. The indignation, the refusal to accept the losses sparked a fire deep within Justinian's soul, and fueling that raging fire was a dream to avenge the heroes of old, a dream to restore what had been lost, a dream to purge this rotten world of like at least 2 barbarian hordes. That would be a start. All that time studying made him develop a taste for hard work though, and since every emperor needs an empress, Justinian began searching for a woman that would really push his limits. Alas, his prostituting farmers told him of one such woman was nearby, and he went to find her. Looking for a plebeian degenerate, but not so degenerate he couldn't civilize and love, he searched for the perfect mix of great and awful, landing on a super hot, prostitute, smart, monophysite plebeian divorcee, Theodora, the love of his life. She of course fell in love as well, and Justinian would seek to make her a faithful Orthodox patrician wife, failing in only one field. Now, it was illegal for patrician men to marry plebeian women, of course, but Justin changed the law such that worthy women could be allowed to, if given permission, which was granted. Soon to become the couple that ruled the empire, Justinian came to enjoy appeasing the masses, throwing massive games and always cheering for the imperial blues, while Theodora didn't. Back to Theodoric, as his schemes failed, death neared, and Justin outlawed his Arian heresy, Theodoric behaved like, well, a barbarian. Cruelly persecuting good Catholic Christians through Italy, he came to the Pope one day and ordered him to go east and demand that heresy be made legal again. Justin then eagerly greeted the Pope, celebrated Christmas with him and Easter, and let him return with some minor concessions at hand. And for this, Theodoric threw him in a dungeon, letting the frail Pope abandoned until his death. The Italians had long despised barbarian rule, and now more than ever yearned for the empire to return. They were not alone. Justinian desired it far more. Lucky for him, he had just gotten to meet a genius new recruit in his executor guard.
I guess Justinian is going to, unite Eastern and Western Empire again. So I think, this is mostly Christian, obviously Christian empire, and it's mostly, ideas are run by religious things like Orthodox or not and things like that. I guess that's why this is called Byzantium Empire and not still Roman Empire, because Roman Empire was East and West, both were Roman empires, only West fall. Eastern is still here, and yet that fall is considered the fall of Roman Empire, because all the core values of Roman Empire went away with it. So all of this is still, you could call it a Roman Empire, but it's kind of different.
Another Illyrian legend, Belisarius. A military genius indeed, and it was so obvious that Justinian granted him authority over his own regiment. Justinian, however, prepared for his own battles he would fight against the dark brother he had grown up with, Khosrau, the Sassanid prince. You see, the Sassanids had recently spread their barbaric tyranny to the Caucasus, and the spooked king of a Sassanid client state over there thus chose to change sides to the Romans, converting to Christianity. Kavad complained and complained, but Justin just ignored him. Enraged, Kavad came up with the same idea as the now-dead Theodoric, sending his son and heir to be adopted by Justin. But he did the same as before and adopted him not as a son, but as a barbarian. Khosrau would then grow up.
That is fucked up, using your sons and daughters for political reason like that. I mean...
together with Justin, learning whatever he could, all secrets and weaknesses. But Kavad had become offended that the Sassanids were being treated like barbarians, you see. And thus the barbarian king of the barbarian empire committed a barbarous act and raised his barbarian hordes to commit barbarities against the barbarian's age-old enemy. The barbarian didn't invade just to kill non-barbarians though, for the old decrepit Justin had recently died, and we all know what that means. As had been the case with so many uncles in Roman history, the day their nephews were acclaimed as Emperor of the Romans, great triumphs were soon to follow. Justinian would deal with the, 1 trillionth barbarian invasion of the empire, but it would not be against the barbarian Sassanids his great triumphs were to come. It had been but half a century since the fall of Rome in the West, and despite the monumental challenges he would face, the reign of Justinian the Great would focus on one thing above all others. The legitimacy of his reign secured by his father, the legions purged the barbarians, and under their best general in ages, the imperial coffers full and ready to fund great ventures, Justinian would give us all to fight against the currents of time and restore Rome to its former glory. Or at least kill a lot of barbarians trying.
That is awesome, isn't it? He has his obviously he has tons of gold now because of his predecessor. He was just a hoarder. It's just like all of the events just led to this. Like Justinian had this ambition. He was really brilliant mind because he was creating all these laws. His predecessor hoarded a lot of money, so he has money power right now. So it all just fits perfectly for him to try to dominate entire Rome again. And he's gonna do that, obviously. This is just awesome. But I feel like, mostly Byzantine Empire is gonna revolve around, religious ideas and, wars because of it. This is awesome, man. I loved it, how unbiased this was. I feel like Doherty is getting more unbiased and unbiased every single time. This was too good, man. I cannot wait for the second episode. I love this one. Alright, people. If you like my reaction, don't forget to like and subscribe. And yeah, I'll see you next time.